Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Space Between podcast. I am Renee. If you have landed here in this podcast, my guess is that you are a fan of the Dave Matthews Band. And if you are not, this is actually a really great episode to get started in. Today, we are going to talk about all things Farm Aid 2023. I was approached by fellow Dave Matthews Band fan Heidi, and she has such a passion for Farm Aid. And not only that, but she was able to volunteer at Farm Aid 2023. So she asked if we could use this podcast as a platform to bring awareness to not only why Dave Matthews himself is one of the board of directors to Farm Aid, but really why is Farm Aid a thing? So today we're going to bring an education to you about Farm Aid, something that we know is near and dear to Dave Matthews. And so, like I said, if you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance that you like Dave Matthews and the Dave Matthews Band. And so, guys, I thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I hope that you enjoy it. Be sure, if you are listening to this on your favorite podcast app, just know that you can find a lot of our podcasts on my YouTube channel, which is the Space Between podcast. So be sure to check that out. Guys, peace, love, and Dave Matthews Band. I hope that you enjoy this episode. Hey guys, I am here with Heidi, and she is going to talk all things Farm Aid today. So Heidi, thank you so much for being on the Space Between. Introduce yourself, tell us where you live, and then tell us how you discovered the Dave Matthews Band and why you're still following them 32 years after they started.
All right. Well, Ms. Renee, thank you so much for having me on your Space Between podcast. I'm so delighted and excited to be a part of this.
Thank you.
So I actually live in Indianapolis, Indiana, but I am from a very small town called Frankfort, Indiana, which is just northwest of Indianapolis. So if you're looking at the map, you go up 65 from Indianapolis, and I'm right there. So I sit in a small town between Indianapolis here and Lafayette, Indiana here.
Gotcha.
So I grew up in a very small community and grew up around cornfields, and every summer everybody would sign up to detassel corn, and then when we go to detassel corn, we play in the field, hiding from everybody and just having fun. But as far as Dave Matthews, I discovered Dave Matthews Band right after I graduated from high school in 1994, and I've just been a fan from there.
Yeah. And so obviously Dave is still part of your life. Do you think for me, Dave has come in waves, right? Like there was definitely an awareness of them when they came out in the 90s, but it really doesn't hit you until you're a little older. I don't know a lot of 10, 12-year-olds that are listening to the Dave Matthews Band. It kind of came in waves in my life. Is that a similar story, or have you been a fan since the moment you heard them? And then it always just what does your story sound like?
So I've always enjoyed them, and I've always just kind of tried to branch out and discover new music, but I continue to get drawn back to Dave. So it's like you leave the band for a little bit, and then you get drawn back in. Then you go and you discover more music, and then you get drawn back in. So Dave Matthews Band has always been a part of my life. It's just kind of gone in waves here and there, just like you've said.
Absolutely. It's always been there exactly when I needed it. It was just kind of like the universe going, here's what you need. Like, here's the perfect medicine. And Dave Matthews is one of my medicines, right? Like, it makes me feel better. Or if I'm feeling angry, like there's Halloween and I can listen to it and be like, yes, love is hell, like all the things you need. And so, obviously the people that are watching this and listening to this are drawn to the fact that we are talking about the fans behind the Dave Matthews Band. And so that's of course how you and I know each other, is through the Dave Matthews Band. And so I want to continue to tell the story of like, what are the fans doing behind all of this? this because there's so many amazing people, and I consider you one of those because, of course, you reached out to me with such passion, I think, and was like, I want to talk about Farm Aid. Like, I need, I want to bring awareness to this. And this is something that's just, I can tell it's been near to you, obviously, since you grew up in Indiana and farming was a part of your life, or it was around you. And so tell us, when did you first discover Farm Aid? And then tell us about what made you want to volunteer, did this increase your awareness, or did you kind of already know what Farm Aid is preaching about?
So initially, I have known bits and pieces of Farm Aid. I've heard a number of bands talk about it, but not really followed through.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember hearing about the board members. I remember hearing about John Mellencamp, which, of course, because I'm an Indiana girl, got to bring up John Mellencamp.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he is a legend here in the state. He does a lot for our communities. He gives back to IU down in Bloomington, so he does that. But as far as volunteering, I got up one night and I just happened to see that Farm Aid was coming to Indiana. And I currently volunteer with Reverb and Headcount. So those two alone just kind of piqued my interest when I found out that Farm Aid was coming to Indiana. So I got on the website. It said if you donate $10, we can get the process started. So I donated $10. Literally within 5 hours, maybe 8, I got an email that said, we would like to welcome you to the green team. And I was like, yes, I got accepted. So that made it even more exciting. But as far as farming goes, because I grew up in a small town, I remember, riding the bus, you'd ride the bus half a mile out of town and you'll see cornfields. You turn the road, you go down the road, you see more cornfields. So it's one of those that I saw all the time. I remember growing up, getting on the bus for middle school more so elementary school, because I didn't have to ride the bus in elementary school, and kids would come to school and they'd be dirty. And I'm thinking, why are these kids dirty? Well, it's because they've been up since 4:30 in the morning working on the farms, helping their parents get the cows together or the chickens, and cleaning out the coops and cleaning out the this and the that. And so those farms have been sitting in those families for multiple generations. And these kids are going in, helping their parents, and then still coming out of helping their parents with the farming and going to school. Come home from school, you do a little bit of homework, you go back out, help finish the day. So that's what I know as far as farming goes.
It's a whole way of life, right? That a lot of people don't know about, because not because they've just never been exposed to it, but having a farm is not only a business, but it's a way of life. Your whole family does it, rather than, a standard job where you just go do it. But in a farm, your whole family has to be involved in order for it to work. And so, tell us, what was your task that was given to you at Farm Aid? What did you do specifically as a volunteer?
So as a volunteer, I got to set up a board, and it was, we pretty much created it on the fly, but we had a board, and then we had a map that said circle or put a heart on your favorite water. And I, of course, circled, just put a heart across the city of Indianapolis, because that's where I live. And we have many waterways. We have White River, we have Geist Reservoir, which are just a couple of things. So, you go out there, you can have fun. You get on a canoe, get a paddle boat, get a whatever, and just go out there, have fun, call it a day, come back in. And that's pretty much what it was. Yeah. But then there were other things that, I helped with the cleaning up and making sure that our board stayed intact the entire day. And sorry about that. And so I would do that, and I would constantly check our board. And literally by the end of the day, our board was completely covered. There were hearts all over the place. And it was really cool to see where everybody comes from and how they got to where they are today.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that you had some opportunities to not only be part of just volunteering, but you got to watch everything that happened. And so we know there were press conferences, there were a lot of conversations before the music started. And so we'll definitely attach these to this podcast. Heidi was so kind to share her videos, and so stay tuned at the very end, and you can listen to those press conferences. So Heidi, tell me your thoughts on what the families were saying, and then I think it's really important we talk about what Dave said too, because I just watched it for the first time when you sent it to me, and you really could just tell that Dave had, like you, so much passion for this. And when he talked, he sounded he I don't want to say he sounded, he was educated about what he was talking about. He wasn't just a big famous guy up there saying, "Hey, we can raise money and that's what I need to do." No, I think his heart is invested in this. And he also sees that this is a problem that is going to continue until we do something, until we're all proactive and make some changes. And so let's talk about the press conference a little bit. What were your thoughts? Did anything stick out to you? And what was it like in the room? Did you really feel like concern? Were people really concerned after hearing this?
Yeah. So the farmers that they did do the interviews with were all local Indiana farmers, which was cool because then that means that they want to give back to our community.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, any type of community involvement that I can get into, I'm jumping in
Yeah.
full, full, full fledged ahead. So in that press conference, you'll see that they would bring up a farmer and their family, and they would roll the video and then they would discuss it. And if I'm not mistaken, John Mellencamp was the very first person on the board to speak about it. And he basically, and please excuse the language because I am going to drop a bomb here.
You're just quoting.
Yes, I am. John Mellencamp basically said, "Fuck the government," because they don't care about our farmers and what they're doing. They're trying to pass a farming bill to help preserve our land for our farmers and to give back to these farmers in what they're doing. And what we're doing is we're basically just taking their land. They sell a little bit and then we just take it all.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sell a little bit and we take it all. And to see everybody go down the line, you could tell that as the board got further into it, the more angrier they got. By the time they got to Dave, he was all smiles and giggles, but deep down you can see how frustrated he is because we aren't doing enough to preserve the land that these farmers have had in their families forever and a day. So to see the expression on Dave and to see him go through the motions, and you can see him reading the boards in what people are saying. You can see him reading the boards, but you can see in his facial expression everything that he is feeling.
Mm-hmm.
All of the frustration that he is with not being able to do more. I did do a little bit of research on here, and this is a fact, and it's sad. Every food that you and I and every American goes out and buys, a farmer only earns 14.5 cents from that sale. Produce, meats, two of the biggest things that we buy every day, and they only get 14.5 cents for that.
Isn't that amazing? And just to think, I mean, right now in 2023, those are the numbers of what these families are collecting to make a living. But it is going to continue to get even harder, and they're going to continue to make even less if some things are not taken seriously. And so those are some things that Dave brought up, that just, that climate change is a real thing. And not only is it real, but it's affecting our farmers because it shortens their seasons. And seasons are so very important to these farmers and for plants growing. And we all know that. But sometimes we forget that, like, climate change, it's melting the ice and stuff, but we don't think of all the other things that it's actually doing. And so I was impressed that he brought that up, because that's something that everyone hears. The planet is changing, the climates are changing. And here's what's happening. Not only is it icebergs, but it's farmers that are going to continue to suffer from climate change. And it's going to be harder for them to make a living. So what are some things that that Farm Aid is wanting to help do, not only to just raise money to help these farmers, but what specifically does Farm Aid help with?
So Farm Aid helps give back to the community. They are going to give so much back to the top 10% producing crops of these farmers. And then from there, these farmers get a little bit. So the money is distributed. Is it distributed evenly across the board? No, because some are going to get a little bit more. I guess, to break it down, it's similar to your podcast. For that $1 that you get for your podcast, you might get to keep 20 cents of that, because then what you have to do is you have to pay for your licensing. Farm Aid, for these farmers, they have to pay for the feed of their animals, which is like you paying for your licensing.
Yes.
And then you have to pay for some of your overhead expenses. These farmers and Farm Aid try to give back to help cover some of the livestock. So the feed that they have to get for their animals, or the warmth that they have to get for their animals, or the fertilizer so that they can prepare those fields for the end of the crop season. Mm-hmm. Because right now, again, and it's kind of breaking it down, but when you go into the editing bay with your podcast to try to get everything done, right now is the farmer season where they're getting ready to close that. So they've got a shorter gap, and they've got to make sure that their farm, all of their fields get cleaned out, that they get everything tilled, and that they start to prepare the fertilization. So when you look at that entire dollar, you get to keep this much from your podcast, which is essentially what Farm Aid is giving back to these farmers, because they're trying to help every single farm. And until our government really looks at that and sees that the piece of the pie that's this much and it should be this much, we are going to continue to go down a slippery slope. You and I are eventually going to die. The planet is going to be here. We will die. Our farmers will die as well. And those farms are going to get exponentially smaller and smaller until there's nothing. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is our foods and our water sources become obsolete, or they have to be genetically reformed, and it has to go through a process where we're not getting those fresh things anymore.
Right. Absolutely. So if someone wanted to volunteer in Farm Aid, how easy I know you said it within 8 hours, you had an answer, but how would someone, if they wanted, if you're in California, you're not where Farm Aid is or ever is going to be, can you still be involved in Farm Aid?
You can go to the farmaid.org website. You can donate money. Right now, they still have
that's perfect.
Shirts.
And then
they have, thank you. They have all the t-shirts. My sweatshirt was $75 at Farm Aid. But if you go to the farmaid.org website, you can, for I think $45 are the t-shirts, the sweatshirts are $75. So all of that money that gets raised from the shirts, from the proceeds of all of that, is still going back into the community. As far as volunteering and getting in there and trying to see what you can do, watch the website. When you see something, get on it and join. If you see that Dave is performing at, we'll say Charlottesville, we'll just say Charlottesville. So right now, more than likely, your websites for Headcount and Reverb are already open to take those to sign up to volunteer. So the earlier you see it, the better it is, because you're more than likely going to get in and you're going to be able to do what you want to do. But it's a very small and a very tight gap. And I know that when people started to open up for the Farm Aid and to be able to volunteer, they literally put like 1,000 people on a wait list. They didn't have enough jobs for those people.
What a great problem to have, right? What a great
It is. It is, but you got to get in there quick, because a lot of people are going to fill up those slots, and it's going to go like that.
Absolutely. So I just want to touch on a few more things that I thought was genius that Dave said. And again, I think that he is so educated in what he's saying. And again, that just comes behind passion. And usually when you're passionate about something, you're educated about them because you want to know everything that you can about that subject. So he said, there's some differences between farmers having farms and big corporations having farms. And here are a few of the differences. I wrote these down because I was like, wow, I haven't thought about it like this. But Dave said, farmers act, homegrown farmers, people that have farms, they own them, have owned them for generations, or maybe have just gotten into farming. These people are investing in their community continuously because they almost have to have customer service. They have to do all of these things in order for people to buy their products. But typically, farmers care about our planet because they know it comes full circle. What we put in, we'll get out. And if we don't put anything in, we're going to stop getting things out, right? And so we heard words in the interviews like recultivating the soil, and those are some very specific scientific things that we just don't even think about when it comes to farming, like the nutrients in the soil and how important that is. And so I love Dave that he brought that down. But for big corporations, he said they don't necessarily, and he said they don't care about the planet. What they care about is profit. And we are not going to be able to survive in a profit-driven system. And so I thought, wow, he really kind of pointed it all out of here's what we have and here's what we're going to have if we don't create some change. And so, when you were listening to Dave, what were your thoughts when he was really kind of breaking down the two options that we have?
I was in tears because it's sad to think that we live in a society where we don't care. It really goes along with the song "Don't Drink the Water." It's that mentality that we don't care what we're doing because
we're going to take it.
Yeah, it's so much of a me world. It's the entitlement of it's just me. I get everything and you get nothing. So to see Dave in that environment and to watch him interact and see when the videos were playing of these farmers, you could tell he was getting more frustrated with that. So being on that board, I think that gives him a better fulfillment and better understanding of what is going on. So Farm Aid has been it incepted in 1985. Dave joined the board in 2001. So I'm going to guess that Dave saw so much of what was going on that with him being from Charlottesville and then also being from Africa, he's seen those things. Mm-hmm. He's seen how these farmers produce and how they don't have all of these things that they need to be able to have a successful farm, to be able to keep that farm or that land in the family and not get sold. So by Dave joining this culture and to be able to get in there in 2001, he's able to help bridge that gap and bridge that community to say, what else can we do? What can we do that is bigger than what I can do, bigger than what you can do, but what can we do to help cultivate what we need? What can we do to help have clean water every day? What can we do to have safe food? What can we do? Because what basically with this whole farming bill that's getting ready to go into effect, and they now have it open until the end of the year, is we are not helping our own backyard. We're sending all of these funds every place else, going across the sea or across the ocean. And I know that that's not really where we're going, but the government is basically shelling all this money to go every place else. And we need to keep it here because it's the only way we're going to be able to help our own backyard. Mm-hmm. Giving back to what we need, giving back to our own farmers so that they can produce the food that we need. They can get the soil that they need. They can get the fertilizer that they need. They can keep their animals warm. They can get their crops together, and they can have a happy life.
Hello, everybody. This is Dave Rich from the Eddie Casino Band out in Las Vegas. We're really excited to get this journey going, celebrating our music, our original music, on all platforms. We just released our first single over Labor Day weekend called Eddie Casino. If you're looking for new music, look out for our next single coming out to Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Music. These guys in the band are really excited to get started playing music for you all. If you like Tom Petty, Zach Brown, Jason Mraz, Dave Matthews Band, Rob Thomas, Jimmy Buffett, Pink Floyd, Stapleton, Bare Naked Ladies, Goose, Billy Strings, Sting and the Police, a ton of influences that we bring to the table. Hope you enjoy our music and look forward to seeing you soon live on stage.
That's right. That's right. Well, I don't think that we can do this episode justice without talking about a little bit of music that happened also at Farm Aid. It was such a great cause, but with a great cause often comes fun. And so, of course, there were so many musicians. It was a day full of music, all different kinds and all enjoyable. But of course, one of my favorite two people were there, Dave Matthews and Tim Reynolds. And so tell me everything about the mood, the atmosphere, the songs, the set list. Let's talk about music for just the next few minutes.
Okay. So they opened the show with Rye Whiskey. A lot of people, while they were doing the breaking down of the stage from one group to another, a lot of people went and got beers and drinks and what have you. As soon as Dave hit, everybody went whoosh, and right back. So Dave opened with, like I said, Rye Whiskey. I wish that he would have played Don't Drink the Water, because I think that would have been a great song to help cultivate and help people understand what Farm Aid is, how big it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But one of my it's not necessarily one of my favorite songs. I love it. None of them you would ever hear me say I don't like. But one song that stuck out to me, only because I had never heard it stripped down like this with just Dave and Tim. And I was told that this happened once before earlier this year in Cancun, but I was not there, so I didn't hear it.
I was.
So you heard Monsters, broke down, just Dave and Tim. And I feel like it almost kind of gave that song just a completely different vibe. I really enjoyed that. And so did you feel that way too? Were you like, yeah, we're getting it again? I mean, how did you feel about that?
I like that song because it talks so much about the stigma of mental health and people not wanting to talk about those things. And to me, by playing that song and closing it, then that makes you think, okay, so these farmers get up at probably 3:30 in the morning and they've got all of these problems going on in their head. And they're like, okay, I have to knock this mental nonsense out of my head for the entire day so that I can take care of my farm. I can tend to what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come back in and they still have these monsters going through their head of like, what do I want to do? There's no rope to hang the dead. There's nothing in the closet. There's nothing in the bed, under the bed. Sorry. It's just the monsters in your head. So it's trying to build that stigma and tell people, you know what? You may have these problems, but what can we do to help? Let's bridge this gap and let's see what we can do to help you.
Ooh, I love how you correlated those two right there. Good job. I would never say that I don't like monsters. I love it. I think, again, the message is amazing. And I actually did a podcast. So if you're listening to this one and you want to hear a full podcast about monsters, I got to break down that song with Melissa Waincheck, and she has a podcast called Number 41 Podcast. And so it was really fun. So be sure to go back to that one and listen. But yes, I think it has such a great message, and a message that needs to be told now more than ever, right? Because the stress in the world is incredibly high, and for farmers, in so much too, right? They're human beings too, and I think with the pressure of not knowing what's going to happen, the uncertainty that they face, I can't imagine getting up and going to a job and investing everything, including my family, into something that I just did not know was going to look like. And I know everybody doesn't know the future, but like when it comes to your job, it's not that way, right? Where you just think, oh my God, what is going to happen? I don't know if I can afford to do this, but it's something that your family has done forever. And so then there's the whole other side of, I'm going to let my whole family down if I'm the one that loses this farm, right? So it's just a whole different set of problems that people are not aware of. And so, yeah, you're right. That probably was the perfect song. Now that we're talking about it, I'm like, you know what, Heidi, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Well, in closing, I want to thank you so much for helping me. I think that this is going to end up honestly being one of my favorite shows because, I think when you can mingle passion and education, it can just do so much. So thank you for sharing what Farm Aid really is about. And so, guys, if you didn't get a chance to watch Farm Aid, it's all over YouTube. You can go back. You can even just watch Dave and Tim's performance. But I encourage you to stay tuned to this podcast. Not only are we going to attach it, but we're going to create links where you can watch the videos that Heidi so kindly has given us to show you. It will open your eyes to the real problems, but coming from the farmers, so you can hear their heart, right? You see the stories, and the stories were amazing heart tugging stories. But sometimes that's what you need, is a heart tug to really be like, oh, okay, this is sad. What can I do to help? So thank you for helping me spread the word. Heidi, in closing, tell me, where did you go? Where did you go in 2023? Did you see Dave this year? And then I'm gonna ask you the hardest question.
Okay, so I did the 3 nights in Cancun.
Amazing.
I did do that. I did actually. So let me retract this back. So, okay. So when I went to Cancun this year, we were on the we could see like all the gallery, I guess not really the gallery, but the courtyard.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that were in the room on this side of us had a presidential suite. And so I came out of my room one day and I was just kind of joking. I was like, God, you guys have an awesome room. I said, I want your room. I want to be able to watch everything. Well, it just happened to be that Dave was doing a sound check and they let me sit in their room, sit on their patio, and I got to watch the entire sound check.
That's amazing.
So I guess I could say I got 4 Dave shows in.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And then I did both shows here in Indianapolis. And so it was a lot of fun to do the 2 shows here. And then, of course, Farm Aid, but Cancun as well. So
I always say there's nothing like Deer Creek. It is, it's just a venue you have to go to like understand it. But also, I believe, and you can fight me on this, I believe the shift in 2023 started at Deer Creek this year. Like the shift and where they were going, we're going to go this way. And everybody was like, what is happening? I believe it happened in Deer Creek in 2023. So thank you, Deer Creek, for all that we got this year. I love it. It's so weird to like, for my first time, I showed up and I'm like, is there a venue like in the middle of these cornfields? Yes, there is.
It is, but no, you're not going to find it.
It's wild, but I think everybody should experience it once. And, you know, the set lists are always amazing at Deer Creek. So it's one of my favorite venues for sure. So Heidi, thank you so much. Oh, last question. This is it. We got 3 minutes, but tell me what song are you chasing that you've never heard live?
Dreams of Our Fathers.
Ooh, yeah. Wonder when the last time. I don't have my everything pulled up, but I
don't either.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. I hope that you get it. This year has proved you never know what you're going to get and when you're going to get it. So just keep it's going to happen. One day it's going to happen. Hopefully we'll just put that onto the universe. It's going to happen for Heidi.
Yes,
if I ever hear it, I'm like automatically thinking of you like, oh, yes, Heidi, you got it.
Got it. Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys. If you are listening to this on your favorite podcast, be sure to check out our YouTube video because, of course, this is where you're going to be able to see everything. You're going to be able to see the pictures that Heidi sent to us from her time at Farm Aid. And then, of course, we're going to attach those links for the press conference and the other meetings that she recorded. So, guys, be sure to stay tuned. We have new episodes that come out every Friday. And each week, I have a different fan of the Dave Matthews Band. So be sure to stay tuned. Heidi, thank you once again. And guys, peace, love, and Dave Matthews Band.